record this. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. I totally forgot. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Just looking at the message. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm still getting used to this whole like whatever this is. Okay. I will I will have all the models kind of introduce themselves. So we'll have Alicia. Why don't you go ahead?
Hi everyone.
Yes. Didn't know you were gonna pick the most naked picture of
No,
me.
you look
Welcome,
so good in
everyone.
it. You look so good.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Alicia. I am a freelance petite model. I just started modeling. It's been about 2 years. I've only been in New York for about a year and a half modeling. And so I would love to be inspiration and help for anyone who, would love to model and would love to get into modeling, but can't do it full time. I've worked with, beauty, lifestyle, parts, commercial. I've been published in a few magazines. And it's been amazing. And I'm so lucky that I get to model and do my full-time job and kind of balance it all.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. Okay, we'll have Nandita.
Hi everyone, I'm Nandita. I'm so excited to see you all here. So yeah, I'm currently a student actually, so I wanted to bring kind of a different perspective here. I'm not as experienced as the other models on the team, but I started modeling a year and a half ago for my friend actually through Cornell, so I'm currently a junior. And so she wanted to have some more like South Asian models that would represent her work, and she's Indian, so she was kind of excited when I was like, sure, I'll do it, I'll try. And so that was a really cool opportunity for me, and it kind of got my feet a little wet and helped me kind of learn from the other models there that had more experience. And so I did that a couple like pop-up shows for the school. And then last summer while I was interning in Seattle, I saw some other opportunities pop up. So that kind of gave me the courage to kind of go in and try to apply. And I saw the South Asian New York Fashion Week marketing to apply for the show. And so I had my friend take headshots of me while we were interning there in one of the hotel lobbies and submitted that. And that's how I got to meet Renee and walk for her for the South Asian New York Fashion Week. And so I plan to continue walking for designers at my school while I'm still here, and potentially after that balance what I'm working in full time and see if any other opportunities come up along the way. So yeah, I definitely wanted to bring kind of a different perspective for someone who is just trying to get started.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome. Thank you. All right, we'll have Shagun.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see so many beautiful faces on this call. And thank you, Renee, for putting this together. I think it was a long time coming, and I'm honestly really proud of everyone to, take that first step and join a panel like this. But yes, my name is Shagun, and I am a South Asian content creator and model. I'm currently based in the Bay Area, but I do go back and forth between here and New York. An interesting fact about me is I recently left my full-time job as a project manager in big tech. So I am doing this full-time. And as rough as it is to kind of lose that, steady salary, we're out here taking risks and making dreams come true. So that's really why I'm here, is to kind of share that story. And my content is really dedicated to fashion, modeling, beauty, lifestyle, and then obviously documenting my travel adventures with friends and fam. And like I said, really the goal is to be, that representation that we all didn't really see growing up. And I think there's incredible strides being made right now in media for that representation. And so it's really good to see all this interest in kind of getting into this space. And so, yeah, really excited to be here. In terms of experience, I've, recently came back from a lot of these models, South Asian New York Fashion Week. So I was social media manager for that, but also got to walk in a couple of the runway shows, which was an exhilarating experience. And then most recently, I dipped my feet in a couple of editorial style shoots, and we'll be having my first published shoot in the magazine in LA. So really excited about that. And then outside of that, because I'm a content creator, I do a lot of like working with brands. So I've worked with brands like Movement, Skims, Sari Room, a couple of other ones. If anyone has any sort of questions on how to break into that or work with brands, always a resource. And I'm sure a lot of these ladies are as well. Yeah, that's kind of like a quick TLDR. I'm sure we'll discuss a lot more details as we go on, but thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And another thing that Shagun kind of shared with me too was kind of her like, do you want to talk about this more? Do you think it's helpful for people to have?
Yes. So I was actually going to bring this up when I saw some of the questions come in, but this is called a media kit, and it's kind of like a resume, right? So when you want to work with brands or an agency or whatever, right? A lot of times you kind of want to build your credibility, or show kind of past experience. And this is kind of like a one pager on, your insights, metrics, a little bit about you and what kind of content you like to do. And then also like previous brands that you've worked with at the bottom. So it just kind of gives like a big picture of what your experience is. So when brands look at you and your page, they know like if you would be a good fit. And so this is really valuable when you're trying to pitch yourself, when you're trying to negotiate, rates and compensation. And also just when you want to shoot your shot and work with a brand that you have dreamt to work with, it's always nice to kind of have a very organized, professional looking one pager. And so, yeah, that's a quick.
Yeah, no, I love this. When you sent it to me, I was like, this would be great, I think, for people to kind of look at. So yeah, and then we'll go to Slaisha.
Hi guys, Renee, thank you so much for doing this panel. I'm actually also very excited to hear about the experiences of my co-models as well as meet a lot of you. Also, I'm so overwhelmed by how beautiful this PowerPoint is. Like, this is so cool. So I started out in the freelance world as a teen in the Kansas City market, which is a small but mighty market. And I got agency signed in 2013. And then that agency took me to a huge modeling convention where there were over 900 models. And I ended up winning the whole thing. It was, so I was named like overall female adult model. And that's how I ended up getting like a bunch of like global contracts like in my hands. And then since then, I've just done a bunch of things. Now I am signed in 16 states across the country. And I've been in everything from Harper's Bazaar in print, which is really rare because a lot of magazines aren't printing things anymore. And I've walked for Project Runway designers. I've been on a number of like television shows, commercials, a few covers, many interviews. Pretty much I work in every single category of the modeling space except for influencer modeling, which is probably the hardest one. I'm sure Shagun can tell you all about that. And fitness, which is like very like athletic, like think Nike and that sort of thing. So I'm not in those two spaces, but I do just about everything else.
Yeah, this is amazing. And I feel like we have a panel that has a lot of different backgrounds, which I think is going to be super important for a lot of the questions that we're going to be talking about today, and also any questions that you guys have in the future. But I definitely want to point out too that I am so fortunate to be able to work with each and one of these beautiful women. So I feel like we've cultivated a really unique relationship that I feel like we met in a short period of time. So I think this is the greatest panel ever. So I'm excited to kind of see what we have in store today. So we'll go ahead and talk about the panel. So basically, a lot of you guys submitted some questions. I'm also on my phone here. So if anyone is messaging in the chat, I'll be keeping an eye. So what will go on is I kind of like put together questions that were most commonly asked, and I'll kind of hit those first. And I'll ask the question, and any of the models who feel like, they kind of want to pitch in the answer, they'll kind of start, and feel free to kind of, comment below any chats that you guys want to ask. So the first question is, how can I model on the side while working a full-time Monday through Friday job, and how do I start?
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was made for me. So I think a few things, like I guess I have a few tips here. One, if you have any flexibility with your job, so for me, I'm hybrid and I work remotely on Thursdays and Fridays. That's when I'll plan my shoots or work or gigs. Like that's when I know I can dedicate and apply. So that's definitely step one, is like maximize your remote days and your weekends. If you have a good relationship with your company, your boss, my boss is very cool. So I even told her that I model. And they're really flexible. They let me leave work sometimes early if I make up for it later, things like that. So see how flexible you can be with work there. The other thing is I follow a lot of casting directors and casting agencies on Instagram and on Facebook. They're always posting on their stories for casting gigs. They're posting for last minute test shoots, collaborations, things like that. And that's just a really, really good way to start, making connections in the industry. Sometimes you work with a photographer and you just really hit it off. That photographer is always going to keep calling you back for projects, or even a brand. They're just going to keep calling you back for projects if they really see you as a good fit. So it's really about networking and building those connections. And then the other thing is, like, my hot tip is, if you're following other models or influencers and they're working with brands or with photographers that you like, follow those photographers and DM them. They might have something come up, or they might be interested in working with you. Even if it's like a small project, you're going to get that experience, you're going to make that connection, and it could lead to something bigger. For example, when Renee did her first launch collection shoot, it was just on like a weekend morning, and I was like, you know what, this looks like a cool brand. Actually, we hadn't even seen the clothes. She was just like, I'm launching a line and I need some models. And I was like, they could be ugly, who knows? But you know what, maybe this will be fun. It turned out to be amazing. And next thing you know, she's calling us back and she's like, can you guys walk for me for South Asian Fashion Week? Like, that is a huge opportunity. So sometimes even the like smaller projects or like collaborations lead to cooler, bigger opportunities.
Yeah. To add on to that, like, I remember like I just had got the clothes from India, and I messaged in the Little Brown Diary group, and I was like, hey, like, any girls that can kind of help me out with an unpaid opportunity. And Salacia and Alicia were the first to kind of volunteer their time. And I remember to myself, I always think like kind of preaching what Alicia said, like, because those two were my like OG kind of individuals who took their time for me, whenever I get an opportunity, they're like the first people I ask. So South Asian New York Fashion Week, they're in the group chat that I'm like, hey, who's available? For New York Fashion Week, they're like the first people I ask to. So I can agree with that. As like someone who's a designer, like, you feel like very supported when you're in the beginning process. So you want to kind of share those opportunities. So I love that. Thanks, Alicia. And then kind of going based off that, Alicia, what was like the first thing you did to kind of reach out? Did you reach out to a photographer first, or a brand? And how did you kind of get that confidence? Because I'm sure like cold calling can be kind of scary a little bit, if you're especially new to the kind of market.
Yeah, so I definitely reached out to photographers first. I really started modeling because I was so bad at pictures. Like, my friends would make fun of me. Like, I didn't want to take pictures. I took like those like angled selfies, and it was really bad. I just didn't have confidence in front of a camera. I didn't know my angles, and that's why I wanted to start modeling. So I started with photographers. I joined like photography groups on Facebook. And there were a lot of photographers there who just wanted to practice. And I was like, great, because then it's low cost, right? I'm not signing up for a gig and I don't have all this pressure to be perfect or to be good or to know what I'm doing. I will just come up with a cool idea and work together, and you get something out of it and I get something out of it. So it was a great way to practice and start getting comfortable, or even like reaching out to friends who maybe dabble in photography, or dabble in makeup or something. Just like practicing your angles and getting comfortable, I think was really big for me in the beginning. And then once I got that, like I said, it was really easy to like make connections, reach out to brands, reach out to people I wanted to work with. And like, that's just kind of how it all started.
Yeah, I love that. And then I guess the next question would be more about doing it full time. So how did you guys quit your job, or how did you guys kind of first get those opportunities to kind of be able to do it full time?
feel like this question was definitely made for me. Also, Alicia, really, you encompassed everything beautifully. But back to the question of how I did it, I think ultimately you really have to ask yourself what your goals are, right? For me, I've always wanted to model and be in the content creating space for as long as I can remember. And I kind of had to ask myself, what am I willing to put in to make that happen? And around COVID is when I started, back in 2020, this whole like taking photos of myself every time I like got ready, or, you know, having friends take photos, really building that online presence. And that kind of leads me to a point that I wanted to make earlier of creating an online presence is very important in this space. Social media is a powerful tool, use it, right? No matter what your comfort level is or whatnot, I think the best way to kind of put yourself out there is through your social media and using your social media as a portfolio in a sense, because that's really when brands or agencies can discover you or like look at your work, look at you, right? And so I think that's always a great tool. For me personally, I was just mentally not okay. When I was at my previous job, a lot of the expectations I had of the team and the work culture was just not being met. And I think I had reached a breaking point where, you know, I would wake up every day with this like overwhelming anxiety of like starting the day. And that's never normal or anything you should, you know, be feeling. And I knew I was meant for more creative things. And I think that's where, you know, I have so much respect for all the women on here that can juggle so many things at once. And I think for me, in terms of career, like I'm at a point in my life where I just want to take all the risks and I want to put my all into this sort of creative journey that I'm on. And if I do want to get back to the corporate world, I know it's always there. But I have this period of time where I can really build my creative, you know, accolades or skills. And so reasoning was really that. It was just, I wasn't happy. And I think you should always put your passions and your happiness first. Life is short. And if you have the means, I think it's always worth just going for something and not worrying about what's going to happen. As long as you know, like put everything into it. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to work out, but I know I'm every day, like getting closer and closer to my goals in this space. And if anybody has more specific questions on like how I quit or like what that process was like, happy to get into that or answer that offline. But you know, what that did for me is that it opened up a lot of mental space, right? To put my all into the modeling and creative realm. And then really it was Fashion Week that kind of like launched everything. You know, walking on the runway shows, you're really like putting yourself out there, getting recognized, and then brands will start reaching out and things like that. So I think it goes back to my point of like creating that presence, networking, like Alicia said, right? Getting in touch with photographers, other creatives. And there is one thing that I think is really helpful for people just starting out. A lot of times, smaller photographers or newer photographers will have like a TFP, which is like time for print. And you can actually, if you don't have the budget or the means to, you know, pay for a professional shoot, you can always reach out to them and say like, hey, like, looking into like a TFP type thing where it's an arrangement between a model and a photographer where you know, give your time as a model and they'll give you free prints from the session. And it's like a mutually beneficial thing. So you can build your portfolio and both benefit from it. And that's how you really like start building that, you know, portfolio of work. And then you can share that with agencies or brands or whatever. I know I kind of rambled, but
this is
let
great.
other people jump in.
Yeah. I know, Slaisha, this is a good question for you too. So I'll pass it along. But before I kind of do that, Shagun, you were talking a lot about social media. And I think that social media like is probably so big, especially when you're trying to start into this kind of industry. So how do you kind of tell someone who maybe like is scared to making maybe their account from private to public? How do you kind of beat the nerves of people talking about you, or like how do you kind of get over the nerve of posting pictures of yourself when you don't know, like sometimes people don't always have the best things to say. So how do you kind of go about that?
That is an excellent question. And I'd be lying if I said I had that figured out. To this day, like anytime I get a negative comment, like I do a double take, and it does bother me, but I remember like the bigger picture of why I'm doing something and also like how far I've come. And I think just in a more direct way, like the way to combat that is, first of all, the way I look at it is I only care about the opinions of people that know me, and that know me for my values and me personally. So if a Joe Schmo is saying something like, oh, you know, you're whatever, you're ugly, you're whatever, it doesn't mean anything to me personally. Like half the time people say things because they're either jealous or they know they can't do it themselves. So that's kind of like the, I guess, mentality I like to take. But in terms of the account thing, that is something that I definitely struggled with, of like, oh man, going public is a big step. And I think I, again, weighed out the pros and cons. For me, it was a way to get my name out there. It was a way to share my art, my personality, what I love. And I have to give credit also to my sister who's on this call. She opened a TikTok account when COVID started, and we went viral, our sibling videos. And I think that encouraged me to go public. And yes, you're going to get a lot of naysayers. You're going to get a lot of negativity being, you know, put at you, but you just have to kind of, you know, compartmentalize and realize that like not everybody can do what you're doing every day, right? And like if what you want is important enough for you, like you'll realize very quickly like that will decrease. And there's so many people out here who, like the real ones, who are supporting you day in and day out. And so just always remember that. But it is something that, you know, it takes a lot of like growing in, and you have to like, you'll get better at it the more you get it. So
Yeah, no, of course.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Salisha?
Yes. So Renee, you're one of the few people that knows my full saga, but I actually went to medical school. And so I was a medical school student the same time that I was modeling and agency signed. It's very challenging to do it all. I had to say no to a lot of opportunities. Then I went and got a master's of healthcare administration, and that was in Baltimore at Hopkins. And that was even harder because it's not like Baltimore has a great network for modeling. I think there was an entire year where I didn't take on any opportunities because everything that was sent to me by my agency happened to be on like big test days or something like that. So like, I just like literally couldn't do anything for an entire calendar year. And then after that, I ended up working actually in fashion. I used to run my own advanced contemporary label, and I actually sold my label. And that's how I had enough runway to quit my job and pursue this full time. And I'm lucky that it like worked out for me. I have like a little bit of a kind of a different story. I'm also married to my high school sweetheart. And so we based our means of living actually on his like base salary, not including bonus, and then not including anything I have. And so as long as he has a job, we're kind of okay. I've been lucky that like I am doing okay in modeling enough that like, you know, I'm very happy with where I'm at. But it wasn't always like that. When you first make that transition to becoming a full-time creator of any sort, or a full-time artist, like there is like a lag period. It does take time to build. And so you just have to make sure that you are conscious of that and don't let that stress you out as you're making that transition. Just follow your heart and eventually the money will flow.
Yeah. And Nandita, like, how is it like, what would you tell other students who are like you in your position to kind of take that first step, kind of take that leap out of their comfort zone? Because I feel like, you know, like you have a routine that you have to be strict to follow when it comes to classes and organizations. So how do you kind of navigate that and take these experiences?
Yeah, of course. And before I say anything, like these ladies here, super inspirational. Like while I was walking with them that day, you know, I was super nervous. They've had walked before, they've modeled before. They were like so supportive. So it's like so crazy to hear their stories. So yeah, as a student, I would definitely say, yeah, the time, it's definitely hard to like juggle everything, you know, like don't have much money on you either as a student. So it's kind of hard to, you know, make that journey, make travel plans. But, you know, I'm lucky that my parents are like supporting me to do this as well. I think that being part of like, you know, South Asian community, like at times there's always a stigma of like, you know, why are you doing this when you have like more like things you could do like within the status quo, you know, like I'm studying engineering, like Shagun, like I'm planning to go into tech, or that's my path as if right now. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And Salisha with medical, like it's really hard to kind of step outside that like expectation that, you know, a lot of people put on you, but having that like network of people to support you from the very beginning is so, so important. And, you know, like balancing everything, it is difficult, but I think that, you know, for being a student, I had to have like breaks, like summer break and then winter breaks, internships. I'm also doing tech. So it's a lot of like, there's a decent amount of free time on my hands. So in the summer, that's when I did a lot of my headshots. I asked some of my friends, some of them are really good photographers. And for fun, I was like, hey, like, are you free Sunday morning when like it's good lighting? Let's go take pictures. Like doing something like that was helpful. You know, winter break, you're at home, there's a lot to like free time. And during COVID, when we were like stuck at home, that's when I first, you know, looked into the space and thought, okay, maybe it's, you know, cool to try. I definitely think, you know, taking any small opportunity is so, so important. Like the very first thing I did was just model for fun for my friend. She just wanted someone to like, who can like fit her clothes and just take pictures in. She wanted South Asian representation. I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. I had no idea where it would lead. So, you know, coming from there to here in such a short span is very like overwhelming, but also like super, super cool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very early on, but, you know, see hearing these ladies' stories, like, we'll see what happens next, but that's kind of how I balanced it as a student. And from experience, like it's definitely doable if you're also a student.
Yeah, and a great point, because I had another question on Nandita, similar to what you said, and I can open this up to all the other girls, but how did you kind of talk to your parents about it? So, you know, sometimes, like you said, there's like a stigma behind kind of doing a more creative field, even if it's for the side or full-time. So how did you guys open up to your parents, bring about this conversation? Did you have to like, make some kind of deal with them, or like, how did you kind of show that this is what you're passionate about?
Yeah, I can start, and then
Yeah.
anyone feel free to hop on.
Yeah.
My parents were surprisingly supportive. I mean, I'm still in school. Like I still, as of right now, I'm planning to go into like tech. So, I mean, in their eyes, like this is like a side thing I'm doing. Maybe if I like decide to quit and do this full time, it might be a different story. But that being said, they were really supportive of it because, you know, growing up, I was very shy. Walking a runway is something that they were like, I never thought like you would do. Like what got you to do this? So kind of building that up for myself and getting that confidence that like, look, I can do this, was very important. And then, you know, you tell your parents like, and whoever's like supporting you, like how much this matters to you, how much effort you're putting in. They'll always come around at the end of the day. Like they see how much it matters to you and they want the best for you. So yeah, I definitely would say like maybe moving forward, it might be a different story, but you know, they came to watch the South Asian New York Fashion Week and they were super impressed like with everything, and like your designs are nice. Like
Yeah.
it was such a cool experience for them. They said to be part of it. So that was just my experience.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to add on to that, or?
Yeah, I can add on. So for me, first of all, Nandita, you're an absolute rock star. Like the fact that you're so young and doing this, it takes a lot. So just be super proud of yourself, because sometimes I wish I was like younger so I could have started this journey sooner, but you know, everyone has their time. But yeah, so for me, I did want to kind of add on and say a lot of my, you know, like I said, leaving your steady tech salary always will be a little bit alarming, especially to parents being like, hey, what are you going to do now? But for me, I think they could see just how unhappy I was. I had been working for 4 years since I left college. And so like I did my time, I feel, and I think I really tried to explain to them just foundationally, I was just not happy in that. I know I'm a very creative person. They knew that too. And that I have this plan, you know, of X, Y, and Z of how to make the most of this opportunity. And that, you know, my dad was very surprisingly supportive. And right away, like when I was trying to say it, that like I left my job, like this was a Monday and I quit on Friday. And I was like, I didn't know how to like break it to them. And always use car rides for tough talks. Helps. I was like, I like did something, but like I promise, like I have a plan, and like I couldn't do it because I wasn't being valued. And the minute I said I wasn't being valued, he's like, I don't care what the brand name is, I don't care what the company is, I don't want you anywhere that doesn't value you for you or that doesn't think you're worthy. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, don't stick around for anything that doesn't value you, right? Like might as well use that somewhere else. And so I think when you put it that way, I feel like parents are pretty understanding, hopefully, and they're at the end of the day, they want what's best for you. But what wanted to add that for me and Slaisha, like honestly, it's the dream to be able to kind of sustain, modeling full time financially, and it's amazing stuff that you're doing. For me personally, having that influencer or content creating background, I think has been my saving grace. A lot of my partnerships with brands and stuff is really what keeps me afloat. And so eventually, I think I'm trying to build my modeling skill set right now. And for a lot of the work that I do, it is not paid, but there's a lot of potential. And so you kind of have to just build yourself, right? Everyone has to start somewhere. And so for me, I think my content creation side is really what is helping with that aspect of things. But yeah, I think it's always good to have very like open conversation with your loved ones about really what's important to you and why you think something is either for or not for you.
Yeah. And to add on to that, if there's any individuals here who feel like they're struggling with, when it comes to mental health, not feeling valued or wanting to have those conversations with their, family, know that everyone here on the panel, including myself, are always open to kind of talk about this stuff. So if you're ever going through something regarding this, we're always here to kind of have that conversation to help you guys out. But thanks you guys for sharing that. Another question we had was, I think this is good for all of you guys, is in a modeling world where it's so full of like maybe Eurocentric beauty standards or non-colored, POC individuals, how do you kind of like, do you feel like you have to constantly fight to feel like you belong, or how do you kind of navigate that presence and be that kind of that the person you want to look up to when you were growing older? So how do you kind of fight those battles?
Can I take this one?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so when I first walked into my agency, it was like all 5'10", 5'11", beautiful blonde, blue-eyed European girls with European accents. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm a petite Indian girl. Like, I'm no Priyanka Chopra, Shwarya Rai situation. Like, what in the world am I doing here? Like, but then I kind of took a moment and I was like, no, this is exactly why I need to be here. There's millions of people out there that look just like me that need to see that representation. And I think for brands still, we are a very directional choice. But I think more and more, I think brands are starting to realize they need South Asians because, okay, so my husband is working on an article about this and I can't say too much about it because it's a huge like media thing. It's the same team that put out like Black talent alongside the Oscars to say that there weren't enough like Black artists and actors getting recognized. That same whole media push, they're doing the same thing with South Asians. Basically, despite being less than 2% of the population in the US, we hold 5 to 10% of the market share. So it's becoming more and more of a business case to hire South Asians. I think like when you're the only South Asian in that room of like 400 girls at a casting, you have to remember that you're a pioneer for your race, which is a lot of weight to carry on your shoulders. But at the same time, I think like you just have to remember that there's millions of people out there it would mean the world if you even just took the bravery to be in that room. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of what it comes down to is like, keep pushing, keep trying. And I think that's a lot of what this industry is like, don't give up, just keep going. And eventually it'll pay off.
Yeah.
That was so beautifully said. Wow. I guess I can add on just really quickly of most recently, I got to work with Skims, and it was something that I never thought would happen, mainly because, my body type does not fit that, I guess, set that they have or the set body type that they are looking for. But I think even they're realizing that, like Slaisha said it perfectly, of this is our time. Like we need to be a part of that. And I think brands are recognizing that. But before getting the opportunity, I think for me, what I did to kind of help, put myself out there or like get those opportunities, and also to kind of like for myself help in my head being like, okay, I don't look like a lot of the girls who are on these campaigns, whatever, is to actually start with a lot of South Asian brands, practice my art, practice my like posing, practicing, being comfortable and confident in my appearance and my look. And I think once I got that with these South Asian brands, I was able to really like translate that into the non-South Asian brands. And I think that's kind of gives you also diversity in your portfolio. And so definitely it's just practice. And it's never, you can always shoot your shot the worst you're going to get is a no. But that's why I think like building your portfolio and credibility is just so important. But yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I wanted to add something quickly too.
Yeah.
So the picture actually that you had of me,
Yeah.
in the, like silver, that shoot, the designer DM'd me on Instagram. Like I didn't know who she was. She DM'd me and she was like, you know, I have this new collection. Can you please model it for me? And I was like, sure, I've never done something like this. She was like, it's a Y2K. I was like, cool. I get there and we start, you know, putting the clothes on, and nothing is fitting me. Like I physically am not fitting in the clothes. And that usually doesn't happen because they ask for your measurements, but these were like couture designer pieces or whatever. There was only one of them. So she was like, I'm so sorry. I was on the verge of tears. I was like, why did I even get picked for this shoot? The other model was like super tall, super skinny, like looked completely different than me. You know, she knew exactly what she was doing. They had to like coach me in terms of my posing and stuff. And I almost didn't want to do it. And I just kept saying sorry. And she stopped me and she was like, hey, I chose you for a reason. I could have DM'd anyone. I chose you because of the way you look and your style and the pictures I've seen of you. I wanted you for these clothes. You brought my vision to life. So stop caring about her. Stop looking at her. I don't want you to be her. I don't want you to be tall. I don't want you to be like stick thin. I want you to have bigger boobs. I wanted your boobs to fall out of this outfit. Like she was like, I wanted this. Like I wanted your look. And that's why I messaged you. And that completely changed things for me, because I feel like every time we're in a room full of people, we're always like, oh, well, she's pretty. I don't look like her. Or she's tall. I'm not like her. I'm not skinny as her. I don't have this. I don't have that. And I do that to myself every time I walk into a room. It was so hard for me, even like at South Asian New York Fashion Week. I was like, oh, there are tall brown girls? Like what? You know? And like, we always put ourselves down, but you have to realize that like, you're you and people are looking for that. Like, that's why they're choosing you. And if you exude that confidence in yourself, people are going to want to work with you even more.
Yeah. Everybody is, I think, beautiful, and not even in their own ways. Everyone is beautiful. And I think that because of society and because of these feelings when we grow up in an environment, maybe that people don't look like us, we kind of tend to compare ourselves. And I feel like that's something like Alicia, you openly talked about too, that you feel, and I feel like that too. And I feel like a lot of people maybe in this call feel that way. And it's like that mindset of us working together to kind of break those kind of unhealthy habits we have in our mind. So I love that. And that was a great kind of answer, all of you guys. Another question that I got, so is how did you guys even start? Like, what do you guys even do? Do you DM someone, like, or do you wait for someone to DM you? Like, what brands do you guys reach out to first? Do you guys remember the brands? How do you kind of have that conversation?
I can start if
Yeah.
So my journey dates back to, like I said, COVID 2020. My really good friend, Millie Barman, she's also the founder of, you might know the brand, Basically Is Me. She opened that up and started it right when COVID hit. I remember distinctly, she, in college, we went to the same school, and she was like, I really want to start this brand. I don't see a lot of like formal Indian party wear that's very lightweight, whatever her goals were. And I remember at the time being like, I love taking pictures, and like, I've never really like thought of modeling, but I want to give it a shot. And so she hadn't had any representation of her brand or outfits at this point. And so I became her first official model for the brand. And it was when I dropped those photos that we took in her backyard, not knowing what the heck we were doing, just for fun. I dropped those photos, and literally overnight, like, got so many just empowering comments, super like motivating feedback, being like, oh my gosh, like you need to like try modeling, or, I was just having fun with it. And I didn't realize I fell in love with it. There was a thrill. There was this exciting moment of like, wow, I get to express myself on camera, and like the inner me is like really coming out here, and I want to keep doing it. I wanted to do more. And so that was really what launched this whole thing of getting started. And I share that because I think it's always nice to start supporting smaller brands, or supporting a brand that's not really as big yet, and working together and just practicing. And I think that was how I started. And then since then, I started reaching out to brands of similar size and, made sure that they aligned with my personal values. I think it's really important to work with brands that align with what your personal brand is, because that's what's going to motivate you to work and produce the best type of work that's authentic. And so I guess a quick tip, I know I'm rambling, is brands will, I'm sure you get like DMs, right? Of like, hey, like we want to work with you, blah, blah, or like, we want to send you some stuff. I think if the brand DMs you, that's awesome. And you want to do your research and due diligence. Personally, my best practice is always really set up your one pager, because I think that's just going to make you look more professional and stand out. And what you can do is then set up a professional email account that you just dedicate to working with brands or modeling work. And then that way you have a paper trail, right, of what your discussions are, rather than DMing back and forth. And then, send that out, reach out very like, hey, I'm obsessed with your brand, whatever it is. Like, I love your mission. I love what you're doing. I really think that this, my page or whatever my skill set would be of use to you. Here's my proposed content idea or plan. Here's where I think you are maybe like missing or lacking on your page. And I would love to represent you, blah, 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 right? Like, show them what they're missing and come with that gap. I think that's the best way to really like to stand out. And it's actually what got me featured on, I don't know if you guys know the brand Windsor. Yeah. It's fast fashion, but I used to be obsessed with it at the time. And I still am, but their page has absolutely 0 South Asian women. And I remember the day very distinctly that they chose to repost me or like put me on their feed. And it was huge because it was literally like white girls, white girls, white girls. Oh, and then there was me. And it was just really a proud moment, because like I remember taking those pictures. They weren't even professional. They were just me having fun with it. And like, I had reached out to them in the past being like, I would love to like one day work with you. I don't see a lot of representation, and like, it just came full circle. And so like, use that power. Like, we have beautiful skins, look, like, just use that and overcome, the fear that like, oh, you don't look like a lot of the like other people, and really like add data to everything you do, because that's really what's gonna convince them that you have your stuff together, you're going to be an asset. And so that's kind of like my, I guess, 2 cents, but I'm sure the other gals here have stuff that they can add.
Yeah, how do you also, if anyone has more things to say, but how do you add about monetary stuff, like money wise, like how do you kind of ask for that kind of price range? How do you know, like what someone asked, like how do you know what's like a comfortable range to ask? Like, where do you even start for your first one?
For me personally, when it comes to, so not modeling, but like brand partnerships or like content, it's really looking at like market rates. It's looking at your own insights, like follower count, things like that. And then there's obviously like the suggested, if you're like a micro influencer, it's like a certain range. If you're nano, whatever, right? That's great. It's a great metric, but ultimately you are the one that knows your worth and your personal value. And so it's a balance of that, because you don't want to give like a big number and then they're like, what the heck? Like, why are you giving this number? Which is why it's important to really like mark everything you've done down, like really show like, this is why you deserve this X, Y, and Z rate, say that you put a lot of effort into your content and show it. That's why your page is so important, right? Like, it's a visual portfolio of them to be like, okay, wow, this is the kind of content he or she produces. And this is why like, I feel like I'd be wanting to work with them, but also come to them with like a plan. Like, there's so many times people like reach out being like, oh, I love your brand, like would love to do this X, Y, and Z. Like, I charge blah, blah, blah for reels. No, I think it's much more valuable to be like, hi, here's the proposed content idea plan from start to finish of what I think would be amazing for your brand. Let me know if you want to discuss this further. Here's my media kit. Here's my rate sheet. And that's like you putting, everything on the table, and it's up to them then to see if it's a good fit.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's like, if a brand says no to you, okay, it might not have been a fit. Don't get discouraged. There are so many other brands that will value you without you having to like convince yourself and them why you're good enough, right?
Yeah.
And people like Renee, absolute gem, like she's put in so much like faith in all of us, and really just looks at all her models with like who they are as people, their personality, not just how they look on the outside. And so like keep that in mind as you work with brands, because some of them like are not the best, and you always want to make sure you're aligning what you're doing with your values and their values. And so yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, that was great. Anyone else want to add anything too about how they kind of started and how they kind of, did they reach out to brands? Did someone reach out to them?
I think I
Oh yeah,
should.
go ahead. Yes, yeah. Please.
Just in case people are curious, I started
Yeah.
out as a teen, and I think when you start out as a teen, I don't know if anyone's of that age or knows anyone of that age that's wanting to get started, but usually people are pulling you into it. And so when I initially started, like I had an agency reach out to me. I didn't sign with them, but shortly after then a photographer found me and wanted to work with me. And then after that, another agency, and then it was after that, another photographer. So it was kind of like, I had like 4 different groups of people like reaching out to me, but that was when I was like really young. Then the script sort of flipped. When I went into go into full-time mode, that's when I started reaching out. I realized walking down the streets of New York City, no one is going to just be like, hey, do you want to model for my agency? Like, it's just not going to happen, especially as a petite girl. Like, it's incredibly rare, and I'm sure it happens. I haven't heard it happen with any of my friends that model here, but I realized at a certain point, like I take things and matters into my own hands. Like if I want something, I need to go after it myself, as scary as it was. And I wrote on my planner, on the cover of my planner, I still have a written planner because I'm a little old school, and it says, be the girl that just goes for it. And that whole year, I just like went for it, and it paid off. But like it took everything out of me, because I'm actually like my Myers-Briggs INTJ. I'm an introvert naturally. And so it really took everything out of me to put myself out there. But I promise you, if you can just like do that thing that's scary and then do it again and again and again, like it will pay off in time. You will hear no every single day in this industry, sometimes 3 or 4 times in a day, sometimes even more. But those few yeses that you get mean everything.
Yeah. Another question we got kind of similar to this was, how do you get into, or what are the best sources to use for freelance modeling that you don't have to pay for? Maybe any other questions or answers to that?
Yeah, so for me, like Shagun said, Instagram has been huge. Like branding yourself has been huge. My friends make fun of me all the time, but putting NYC model on my Instagram like header has changed my life. Like I have international DMs. People are like, "Oh, I'm visiting New York from Spain and I want to work with you." You know, like because that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to Instagram and they're literally typing New York model, South Asian model, petite model, blonde model, and I'm the first one that pops up. So like branding yourself, and then I could like showing that in your Instagram, like your Instagram is your portfolio. Every casting, every photographer, every brand is going to ask you for your Instagram. And now they started asking for your TikTok too. So if you're into that, like include it. But they will always ask you for your Instagram. So like that's your portfolio, that's your resume, that's your place to shine. Tag all your brands, put all your best pictures, write everything in your bio, you know, put the hashtags that, you know, people are searching for that are going to make you stand out. Because that like that's your first impression. That's how they're going to find you.
Yeah. So what are some of the risks involved in being a freelance model? That was one of the questions we got.
I would say 2. One is safety, because you have to suss everyone out yourself. Like Renee, I sent your profile to the whole Bhangra circuit. So I was like, I stalked you, and then I was like, I know she dances, and then I sent it to all my Bhangra friends, and I was like, is she cool? You know, like
Yeah.
I suss everyone out, and like that takes a lot of time and it's annoying, but like of course you have to be safe. Especially if you're like working with, you know, photographers that you're just finding on Instagram, like you just never know.
Yeah.
And that's always the most important thing. So I think like sharing your location, letting people know where you're going, like stalking them, getting references for those photographers or brands that you're working with, just to make sure that everything's going to go as smoothly as possible. And then 2, I think the pay thing is huge. Like I think the rates, it's a lot harder to negotiate for yourself when you do freelance modeling, because when you're assigned with an agency, you have agents doing that for you. And, you know, sometimes there's a stigma that if you're from an agency that you maybe have more experience or you have more training, you're a little bit more professional rather than freelance. But I still think it's possible. And I think it's just being strategic about it. Like I said, I have, done something for free and then in return received a large paid opportunity because I did the one modeling shoot for free. So it's just kind of strategic and balancing, but I would say those are like the two risks of freelance modeling.
Yeah, no, I love that. And for everyone here too, so a question we had was, what has the culture been like at modeling events you participated in? Any negative ones, positive ones? How have you kind of navigated any negative kind of situations that you feel like would be beneficial to like maybe share with people so they're more aware of if they experience a negative kind of interaction, what to do in that time?
I kind of want to start with a negative one first. That way we can leave on a positive. So I was assaulted on a shoot earlier this year by a photographer. He tried to pull down my underwear, and I don't want to go into all the details because it's going to bring back all the trauma for me. But it was incredibly scary. I was alone, even though there was a stylist, two hair people, two makeup people. My agent was there. The owner of my agency was there. And there were like 3 or 4 other models there on set that day. But I was with him in a separate kind of area, and I didn't exactly know how to get back to everyone else. And my one regret is not leaving sooner. But I ran right in and I immediately pulled the head stylist to the side because I knew she was the one that had hired him. And I told her what happened, and she immediately like kicked him off of set. And she put him on the ship model management, which you should always check when you're sussing people out. And yeah, my agency said that they're telling all of their other counterparts that never work with this guy ever again. But it was incredibly scary, and that is the only time in all my years of being in this space, like I'm literally almost 30, I've been doing this forever, that I've had that kind of experience. And it was like my agency connected me to. So
yeah. So I'm so sorry that you experienced that, but I'm really proud of you for kind of taking that step, because I know it can be really hard to kind of experience that trauma and share it with someone. But what was that list you said that people can also look into this? You said there's a list.
It's an Instagram account called Ship Model Management.
Okay. Good to know. Maybe I can remember that. Yeah, gotcha. No, thanks for sharing that. Anyone else have anything to
give a positive?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Was there any? Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, most recently, at South Asian New York Fashion Week, I mean, there's always learning lessons from every sort of first time event that you put on like that. But overall, I mean, in my experience, right, everyone was super supportive and there for the right reasons. I think like everyone was just so good at like that hype energy, really cheering people on. A lot of people who participated, actually including myself, had never done runway before, and it was just so nice to see people like Slaisha, like who've done it, just set this kind of stage there and like encourage everyone, teach them tips and tricks. And like, yeah, overall, I think there's always going to be your negatives and your Debbie Downers, but for overall, I would like to say I like to have hope in people, and when there's positive energy, I like stick to that and not worry about all the negativity. And you get, why did I say it like that? Negativity. And you get to choose to stay away from or take yourself out of a certain situation that doesn't align with you. So I guess that's a way to kind of like combat that. But yeah, for the most part, like we're here for the support. We're all on the same team. And I think it's always good to kind of like foster that always.
Yeah, I think especially in our South Asian community, I think sometimes we might feel like we have to compare ourselves even to like individuals, but I think it's so important to kind of switch that mentality and just be as supportive as you can for anybody, in the South Asian community, especially because we're kind of doing this together. And I think if we hype up the people around us, I think that's when we can kind of grow and like bring more kind of recognition, so I think that's such a good point. Another question we got was, what are some good beginner-friendly companies or brands to work with? Do you guys have any favorite brands? I think that you guys feel like early on in your career, like that kind of really set the stage for you guys, that you would recommend individuals here to kind of reach out to?
RKJ.
Yeah.
RKJ is my number one.
Yeah.
I think one of the best things about the South Asian space specifically is that they love to use South Asian talent. And
Yeah.
so if you're South Asian, you're on this call, highly recommend just DMing your favorite South Asian brands. Like they're always looking for new faces and they're always looking for new pockets of the market to kind of target. And so you may unlock like a new community for them.
Yeah.
And so really any South Asian brand that you have your eye on, like go for it. Kajana Boutique in Edison, New Jersey was one of my favorite to work with. They rarely say no to anyone that wants to work with them. And if they say no, it's not now, like maybe next month or, the month after that, but it's like, they will want to work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with Preserve and they were great to work with. I had a great time. And they're always looking for people as well. So I would definitely reach out to them.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not sure how many, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I don't
go
know if
ahead.
there's many like students on this call, but I know like every school like pretty much has some sort of like fashion department or some sort of outreach. I know my school has like a good presence, but other schools like Rutgers, my friends are in, have really good presence. And a lot of these designers are starting off, like a lot of the designers that are pretty big now started designing in college and had their small little pop-up shops within school. So, kind of supporting them is very important. I know when I first told my friend, like, yeah, I would love to do it for you. Like I just seeing her like work throughout the time just gave me like appreciation for that end of the spectrum as well. The design, like the 3 a.m. like fittings, everything was super important for both of us. So I would definitely say like, if you're younger and want to support, the university students, they'll be really happy for you to support them as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. I appreciate this so much. And I think I think we covered a lot of the stuff that was being asked. And I'll ask one more question to kind of wrap this section up, and then we'll kind of open it up to everyone else on the call. But if you guys could tell yourselves when you guys were first kind of starting this modeling kind of like your path, what would you guys say? What would be the biggest advice, or what would you just tell yourself in the beginning?
For me personally, I would say like, well, it's two-sided. So one is like, at the end of the day, like you are your biggest enemy. A lot of times, like it's really easy to get in your head and convince yourself why you shouldn't do something or why you're not good enough for something, but then flip that. And that's why my whole motto is like, confidence is power, because with confidence, you can do literally anything. And this goes out to my girl, Megha Thakur, rest in peace. She really, she preached that, and it worked wonders for her. And I think confidence is literally your biggest thing that no one can take away from you, because only you exist as you in this world. No one else can be you. And I think that's why it's important to lead with that always, because it will show through, and realize that your personality is of value. The way you look in some cases obviously is important, but ultimately it's like you as a person and what you stand for that also adds value. And so if I was my younger self, I would say like, I wish, you developed that confidence sooner, because once you master it, like no one can take it away from you. And also the importance of like networking and putting yourself out there and saying, like, I don't care what you have to say, I'm doing me. Really do not worry about what people say. Alicia mentioned earlier, like NYC model, using all those hashtags. I remember like people used to be like, that's so cringe. Why are you like using so many hashtags on your post? I'm like, well, okay, I see where that took us now, like
Yeah.
It's all for, as long as you're okay with doing something and you have the right reasons, don't worry about all the, people that don't know what you're doing, and just do it.
Yeah. No, I
It
think
works.
oh, sorry, I interrupted you. What'd you
No,
say?
you're good.
Oh, yeah.
All I said is that it works.
Yeah. And I think to go on that, like, I think that for me too, it's still a struggle. I literally recently just put my account from like private to public. And I think it makes you scared a little bit, like, how many eyes are watching, or like who's going to comment. But then you realize like the people who you genuinely want to care about are going to be the ones that are supporting you. The people who are going to talk behind your back, even acquaintances that you hear are talking behind your back, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's if you're happy and you're not hurting anybody, and the people that you value the most, have that support for you. So I know that everyone here too, I think like all of us, if anyone here is kind of starting that journey, you have 25 of us who will always have each other's backs, so know that you guys are, have that confidence with us too. Anyone else want to share?
I have two
Yeah.
things.
Yes, please.
we've kind of touched on this a little bit, and Shugan made some really amazing points about this, but don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself against yourself and like where you want to be going in the future. And then 2, we all have insecurities. And so like, even on your worst day, find like 1 or 2 things that like you love about yourself. And for me, like those tend to be like more like things that I've gotten from family. Like I like my bone structure because it reminds me of my grandpa. Something like that. Like I like my frizzy hair that's always unkempt because it reminds me of my mom. Like, you know, like even on your worst days, like things that are there about you and your body and the way that you look that you will love no matter what. And because a lot of this job does rely on how you look, like you do have to love things about you. And so for me, like even on my worst, like skincare day or anything like that, like I love my bone structure because it does remind me of the person that I love most, which is my grandpa. And I used to hate my frizzy hair, but I realized that I get it from my mom. And like, that's a part of me that I'll always have. And that's also what landed me Harper's Bazaar, because an editor loved it. And the photographer like was like blowing air and stuff like that. And so that's what made that happen for me.
Yeah.
And so those are 2 things that I will always love about myself, no matter like how old I get.
I love that. I think those practices are super good because in reality, our bodies are constantly changing all the time, right? Like even if you don't want it to change, it will change. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like learning to love yourself while your body's changing and growing and living, even when maybe society is telling you different things, right? I think just having that kind of mentality of like finding those 2 things that you love about yourself, even though maybe it's hard to do that sometimes. I love that practice. I think that's so good. Alicia or Nandita?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. I think the most important thing for me was like trust the journey and trust yourself. I did my first runway show when I was in high school. I was like 17. I didn't know what I was doing. My friend was into fashion and she was like, would you model my designs? And she got into a fashion show. I was horrible. Like I had never done it before. I almost tripped. I like didn't know what faces to make. It was terrible. And after that, I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then during the pandemic, I picked it up and I was like, you know what? I did it once and I want to come back and do it right. Like I've been a quitter my whole life. I'm not going to quit on this.
Yeah.
And so I came back. I started in Little Rock, Arkansas, where there's a population of 1 brown person, and it was me. And I got signed with an agency there, and they got me 0 gigs because they were like, "You're short and you're brown. Try to look taller and wider in your pictures." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I had a lot of hurdles and a lot of things blocking my way. But then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna move to New York and I'm gonna do this thing. And yeah, I'm gonna be probably a small fish in a really big pond, but I want to make this happen and I'm gonna do what I can and I'm gonna bust my butt to make it happen. And I've gotten to a place where I couldn't have imagined, and I'm gonna keep going. So I think it's like really about trusting yourself and trusting your journey. And everyone, like you just heard on this call, everyone's journey is different. Like there's no formula, there's no way to do it right. You can just pick, pieces of advice that kind of apply to you and resonate with you from everyone. But at the end of the day, you just have to like believe in yourself and believe that you're going to put in the hard work and it's going to pay off.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry. Salisha, I know you said you had 2 things and I definitely cut you off. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah. Sorry, I completely forgot about the second thing because I'm so excited about the first thing. The second thing was there's room for all of us. Like, don't be competitive because like, guess what? If a designer likes you and me, they're going to pick both of us. Maybe not at the same shoot day, but they are going to pick both of us. Like literally no brand just has 1 model. Like that's not a thing. Like they need freshness. They need new faces, and there's enough brown like talent and brown people opportunities for all of us. So don't feel like there's already somebody that looks kind of like you and like you shouldn't go for it, because if they like you, they're going to take all of us.
Yeah. And echoing off of what Salisha said, a lot of times there's this, I think in the South Asian / brown community, oftentimes we see a lot of like gatekeeping and a lot of competitiveness that, it comes from long rooted issues. But anyways, I think the important thing is, like Salisha said, there's room for everybody. And just remember, like, there is such a thing as good karma in this space. If you go out of your way to help someone out, kind of like what we're doing here, of sharing our resources, sharing our story, sharing what helped us get to this point, it's going to come around and people are going to remember you when it comes time for them, they're looking for something and you're top of mind. So just always have that like supportive, not gatekeeping mentality, because you never know what's going to happen and how that kind of benefits you as well. So yeah.
Huh. Nandita, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, amazing things were said. I'll just try to echo some of it and add something else. Definitely like, just a type of industry that's very volatile. Like it's always changing. You never know, like, one time could be a no, another time could be a yes, is like from what I've seen from experience and from listening to other people who have modeled for longer. And what Alicia said earlier about like trust the journey is so important, not just for modeling, but any aspect of life. Like use any failure as a stepping stone. Like what seems like a failure that's a no may not be a failure. It could tell you like maybe improve on this, or maybe like do more research, or whatever the case may be. So like it's a weird journey that you don't really know where it will end up, but yeah, don't be discouraged by no's. Like we've all had no's been thrown at us many times, but led us to beautiful paths at the end. So that's super important. And what Salisha was saying earlier about like loving yourself, loving your features, like we are our biggest critics most of the time. So, like they tell you all the time, like when you're walking, like, look at how you're walking, look at your facial like expressions. When you do that over and over again, sometimes you get used to seeing that. So you kind of like forget how beautiful you are. So it's so important to like always like be proud of like, where you are, be appreciative of like your features, because that's what you have. So like own it. So
Yeah, no, that was amazing, you guys. And so I'll take, maybe we can take like 10 minutes to kind of ask any questions we have from anyone here right now. Feel free to like do like that hand raising thing, and then we can call on you guys. Or if you don't feel comfortable being on video or stuff, we can kind of ask a question in the chat. So Varnika asked, what are your biggest tips for confidence? So let's just have one person kind of answer, and then we'll kind of go to the next.
For me, I remember that my journey with confidence started when I started journaling. And I think that's been very beneficial for me personally, because it's all about affirmations and really like writing down every little thing about yourself that you love and what you're grateful for and what you are. So like, I am strong, I'm independent, I am beautiful, I love my like big nose, I love my lanky long legs, whatever it is, right? Like really convincing yourself that you are beautiful. And I think that will help you sort of like train your brain to really like wear that confidence. It's also just like practicing and like feeling yourself when you're like in the shower or something, and you're like, look in the mirror, take a moment, like take it in, like learn to compliment yourself. I think the more you also like compliment others and like support others, it's like this feedback loop. It's just positivity. So I feel like that's kind of what has helped me. And also there's nothing wrong with practicing something that you might not be like super comfortable in. So like whether it's a runway walk or taking photos, you build confidence with more practice, right? And more familiarity. So just like take those self-timer pics when you like are feeling yourself or you look good, back to what we were saying earlier, post that photo in the drafts, sis. Like don't delete it. Don't think twice, just post it, like, and just let the rest be on its own. Like, I think that's just kind of what has helped me, but I know that there's probably other recs that ladies have.
Yeah, no, anyone else have any questions here? Oh yeah, Nirja, and apologies for if I pronounced your names wrong.
Oh, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
You're okay. You pronounced it correctly. It's
Yeah.
Nirja.
Yeah.
So a lot of my favorite creators, all of the, models included here today, a lot of you guys live in New York, and I feel like a lot of my favorite creators live in New York as well. So I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just my mindset. I feel like all the opportunities are in New York. I know you can like work with brands based wherever, and you can collaborate that way. I moved to LA like 2 years ago. I had done some modeling experience from undergrad. I am almost 28, so I feel like I'm maybe the oldest person in this chat, or close to oldest. So I guess my question is like how to develop connections somewhere new that you just moved, Los Angeles. And another question, I don't know if any of y'all's accounts maybe started off in a different direction. My account started off with vegan recipes and fitness. And I'm a personal trainer, physical therapist, and yoga teacher. So a lot of my page is like my brand. which is all about fitness, movement, empowering South Asian women on how to get stronger. But I really do love fashion and I want to start to incorporate that more. I am currently working with the Sari Room. So maybe just tips on how to like, A, find people in a place that you just moved to, and then B, like if your page is kind of like your brand, which is something different, like fitness or something completely different, how to incorporate fashion like into that. Thank you.
If anyone else wants to jump in, you can add on. Go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so Neeraj, I left you a message in the chat. I put my friend's handle in there. Her name is Shalini. She's mostly in like the kind of like Bay Area-ish, but she comes down to LA like all the time for modeling stuff. I'm also good friends with Trisha Batra. And she's a very popular content creator. And she's also based out in LA. Highly recommend connecting with other people that are South Asian in the space, because like that has been one of my biggest reasons that I got like some of my most recent opportunities. Like I wouldn't have gotten Anita Dongre if it wasn't for like friends advocated for me. I wouldn't have gotten Kalki if it wasn't friends advocated for me. And so going back to like the networking point that Shagun brought up, it's like those are the opportunities that South Asian New York Fashion Week kind of brought. So highly recommend connecting with those two girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, Nirja, I'm based in the Bay Area actually, and I go to LA here and there too. It's a trifecta. It's LA, New York, Bay, but so I'm here as a resource as well. Have a couple of creators that I also follow that I think would be great to network with. But ultimately, it's kind of like Alicia said, where that's why the bio is really important, because when you search up like LA blank, model, LA creator, dancer, whatever it is, it's like those people pop up, and then you can start engaging with their content. Maybe you can like DM them and talk about what you like about their content. And if they're ever down to like grab coffee or talk about things, whatever it is, it's always good to just like network via Instagram. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Avigna?
Thank you.
Hey guys. So I just had a quick question on how do you like start to, explain things to your family who don't really understand content creating, or like friends that kind of like make fun of you for getting started? Like, how do you get over that? And how do you explain what you're trying to go into in like a way that they can understand?
I'll help with this one. So I think it's a couple of things. I think one, like with your friends, I think once they start seeing how passionate you are about it, especially your parents and your friends, they're going to start supporting you and they're going to help you understand. But I think one big part of it is like walking them through the journey. Like that was important for my parents. In the beginning, like my dad is very conservative and he was like, I don't understand this modeling, what are you doing? Like focus on work. And he started seeing like how passionate I was about it, how I would like literally go to my like 9 to 5 and then go to a shoot 5 to 9. And so I think like bringing them into the process, like I would like be doing my makeup and I'd like FaceTime my dad. I'd be like, Dad, look how cool this looks. And then like shoot him the pictures like right after I got them and be like, look how amazing this is, or like I got to work with this brand today. So I think like involving your support system and showing them how passionate you are and how into it you are, the reason why it makes you so happy or the reason that you want to do it, I think really brings them along the journey. And then like one important thing for my mom, she was like, I'm fine with you doing this. I'm like, you're fine with me doing this. Like, I'm 26, I'm an adult, I can do this. But she was like, I would just really appreciate it if, you didn't like cross your like boundaries and do anything revealing. And I was like, I won't do anything I'm not comfortable with. And I want you to trust me that I won't do anything I'm, uncomfortable with. And I think we have like that mutual understanding. So I think that was also big too. And that trust got built again, like I said, because I brought her on to things. I didn't hide pictures from her. I told her exactly where I was going, exactly what I was doing. And she was like, okay, cool. So like, you're not, like doing things that I'm not cool with. Like you're doing this because you're passionate and it's fun for you and you're getting to work with cool brands.
To kind of add one more thing to that, I think that was really well said, especially when it comes to like family and having those tough conversations. When it comes to just like friends, acquaintances, and whatnot, I think the biggest thing that people don't talk about, and that's a very natural part of life, and that it happens to all of us at some point, is that you are going to cut people out and distance yourself from people that don't align with where you're headed or where you are. I know we have this fear of letting go, and it's never fun to like burn bridges. And I try my best not to do that. But sometimes, like, if there's something that's so important to me, I shouldn't have to explain 10 times why it's important to me, or like why I would appreciate it if, like, people weren't saying stuff like, oh, that's cringe, or like being judgmental. Because the same way we wouldn't judge someone's dream of becoming a doctor, whatever it is, right? Like, why should they judge our dream? Like, no dream is above another. And so I think it's really, really important to set those boundaries and distance yourself respectfully if something is not aligning with you. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't owe anyone anything. You owe yourself everything. So just remember that always.
Yes, I love that. Lavina, I think you're next.
Hey y'all. Oh, so good to see everybody. I love being in these spaces where everyone's brown and we're thriving.
Yeah.
So I am currently 29, which for me, like, this is the best and happiest I've ever been. So I don't feel old, but I do like worry sometimes. I'm like going to be 30 next year. And like, that is such a, yeah, like modeling and the word 30 just like don't mix in today's world. So I'm curious if you've ever experienced like age discrimination at all, or if that's kind of like hopefully fading out soon and maybe women can be beautiful at any age now, yeah. So curious about your experiences with age.
Can I answer this one? Because I'm 29.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm 29 too. I turned 30 in January in like a little bit less than a month. And so I'm right there with you, girl. There's actually categories at some agencies called 30s. Like, it's an actual category. Like, when you have the drop down, it's like men, women, non-binary, 30s. Like, it's a thing. And so like it's becoming more and more of a thing. I would say it has more to do with what you look like than what your actual age is. And so like I just got cast in a rom-com as a high schooler. So like I'm like literally turning 30 next month. So like you can literally be anything based on how you present at an audition or like in a casting kind of situation. And then I will say that there are some opportunities that I'm like too young for. Like, I get the opportunities that are like 25 to 35 or like 30 to 40, and like they get sent to me because my agent is like, well, your age is kind of this like range, but then I don't get it because I look too young. And so like, if you do look older in that space, like, dang, I can't wait till I actually look 30 because, or whatever these casting directors think 30 is, because there's a lot of money being left on the table right now. Even for 40s, 50s, 60s, like it just keeps going. Like the commercial market, so there's high fashion and then there's commercial work. In the high fashion market, that's only like 10% of the market. And that's when you think Gucci, Prada, Fendi, blah, blah, blah. 90% of the market is that commercial side where they're very flexible with heights, bodies, age, all of that. So there's a ton of money to be made and a ton of opportunities to be had. So if you start at 29, I think that's a great age. Like by now, you know who you are, you're like ready to go kill it. I know tons of really successful models that have started around 27, 28, 29. So go for it.
Yeah, thank you. I think Kushi, you're next.
Hi, I'm Kushi. I'm 17 years old. I don't know if I'm like the youngest one here, but I also kind of like just got into like modeling this year. And I just wanted to ask, like, I know Salisha, you're like signed to like a bunch of agencies. So like, do you rely more on like your agencies giving you castings, or do you like also find like castings like freelancing?
So by contract, technically, I'm not allowed to find my own opportunities. So I always, like, if something does come my way through a personal network, I always have to tell my mother agent about it. I'm really lucky in that she is super chill, and she does allow me to do unpaid stuff every now and then if she does her own due diligence and finds that like whoever I'm working with will give me better opportunities. But I've kind of like always felt safest, I think, in the agency space, especially because I started roughly when I was your age too. I started when I was 16. And so I feel like they created really structured kind of opportunities for me where I would be safe and where I was like guaranteed to like have like a good experience. And so that's why I didn't have a bad experience until like this last year. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of whatever you want to do. You're actually starting at the perfect age. If I could pick any age that I would have started at, it's definitely that age. Like if you want to go the agency side route, that is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Priya?
Hey everyone, sorry I joined a little bit late. I had a white elephant for my work, but I heard like half the presentation. Wanted to jump on somebody, I forgot who asked something about like which markets you're in and how there's a lot of opportunities in New York. So I'm actually based in Houston, Texas, and Houston's not really great for opportunities compared to a lot of other cities. So my first question is how you would advise going about that in a market that's not as opportunistic.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually got a Houston opportunity in my DMs like from a makeup artist in the South Asian space. So like, I know that if you like DM some of these like makeup artists and photographers, especially in the Houston wedding community, there's probably a lot of styled shoots that you can be a part of. And then actually just Texas supports Texas. Dallas has some of the best agencies in the entire country. Some of my favorites at the top of my head are Dragonfly Agency and Kim Dawson.
Okay.
And so those are some agencies that you can look into. Like a lot of clients are actually headquartered in Dallas, and actually with more like tech companies moving from the Bay Area to Texas, whether that be Dallas and Austin. There's great agencies in Austin too. Brown Agency is like the Wilhelmina of the South. I had a friend sign with them before she moved to Europe to be full-time in Europe, but really great opportunities because within Texas itself. And like those opportunities, you should be able to fly like day of or go day of, but like Houston has a great like freelance market.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, this was great. And thank you guys so much for kind of coming to this call. Two kind of things I wanted to share. I'm gonna send over a Slack channel that I thought would be really good for all of us here, whoever's interested to join, where we can kind of like keep asking these questions, or if there's ever like a picture you're like, oh, I'm scared to post, like we'll be those group of girls or any individuals here to hype you up, to help you post, to help you get that confidence. So really kind of, use a Slack to whatever you kind of want to get out of it, and whether it be questions. If any of us are looking for opportunities, the models who help talk today, maybe we can use that chat to kind of, open some opportunities for anyone. So please feel free to ask us questions. Know that is a safe space for all of you guys. Another thing, I know Shagun, you talked about this, but I think South Asian New York Fashion Week is the one organization that's really kind of vouching for so many South Asian models, like a lot of you guys who might be interested. So really following them. I know that from my experience with them, they did such a good job at like really being and bringing the voice for a lot of individuals who didn't have experience. So, following them and getting a platform like that, I think engaging with the brand like that is super helpful. So I think Shagun gave the Instagram handle for them on the chat. So I think keeping like following them and stuff, I think would be good. I'm trying to make sure. Oh, I think Ria, you had one question.
Hey, I actually joined the call a little late, so I must have missed a lot of stuff. But I just had a low question. I know Sleisha is going the way with doing it modeling with an agency. I just wanted to know if everyone usually does that, or they try to reach out with people on their own.
It's kind of whatever you prefer, honestly. I mean, I used to be freelance before I was agency signed too. So similar to what Alicia has found success in. Alicia, honestly, is probably the most successful freelance model I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Like her resume is stacked, y'all.
Okay.
Like, it's absolutely insane. But Alicia's also like a hustler. Like she goes after it and she is confident and like she's everything I aspire to be when I grow up, even though Alicia is younger than me.
That's how I feel about you.
But yeah, I feel like my agency has definitely helped me kind of get opportunities that I definitely wouldn't have been able to get like as a freelancer. Like just this week, like Nigel Barker literally shot girls for my agency. Like he's the guy from ANTM. Like I got Elle Decor magazine because of my agency. Like that's not something that I would have ever gotten like being a freelancer, I don't think, because I don't think like I would have ever been able to put myself out enough for that. And so I think like you have to look inward and know yourself, know your strengths and what you would rather like do yourself versus outsource. I prefer to outsource it. I lose a lot of commission that way though, because like your agency will take a 20% cut off of every single booking that you do. And so just keep that in mind that there are like commission splits then.
And then to add
Thank
on,
you so much.
for me
Go ahead.
personally, I'm coming more at it from like the influencing content creating background. So a lot of the gigs I get are through my like content creation. And so when I'm creating content, a lot of that can go hand in hand with modeling and for portfolio photos. And so it just really depends on what you prefer. I am, and Saisha, I'm going to talk to you and Alicia as well. 2023, my biggest goal is to potentially like look into getting an agent or getting signed. I have been like doing all this on my own so far, and it's been really great. I've made a lot of like connections, and it's really helped with my like content creating as well. But there are, you know, I've done pros and cons, and I feel like at this point in life, I want to like give the whole agency thing a go as well. So I think, yeah, there's so much that we can all learn from each other. And I think that's why this is so great. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, of course. Kushi, I don't know if your hand is still up for a question, or are you okay with the questions? Same with you, Ria. All good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay.
No, thank you both
Yeah.
so much.
No, yeah, I just wanted to say, like, you know, big shout out to Salacia, to Alicia, Nandita, and Shagwan. They are some of the most inspiring women I have ever met, and one of my favorites. So I'm so honored for them to kind of share their experiences, take their time to kind of answer these questions. And I really hope that, you know, talking about this in a collaborative, safe space can really kind of, I don't know, like maybe make a difference to, you know, individuals here. So I really hope this helps. And I really hope the Slack channel will kind of aid some kind of help for you guys. And I'll put this recording up too on our link tree or something. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, know that my DM is always open. And I'm sure all these, you know, amazing models will also be open. But with that being said, I appreciate you guys so much for joining and supporting. And thank you to the lovely models. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
Yes, of course. We will talk soon. Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.